Good morning. It's July the 2nd, and it is right now exactly 8 o'clock. Not a bad day out there, but not a brilliant day either. A pleasant day, one that we can live with, I think. And why not? Welcome to Mirador Television, the unique, esoteric, unconquerable, unforgettable television service that defies every television convention ever to come down the pike. But that's what makes us interesting, I think, which many of you are now beginning to say, oh, yes, we watched Suki. And blah, 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 blah. Everything you said is absolutely true. So there you are. We try hard to be a proper alternative. We have no isms. We have no exterior influence telling us we must do this or must do that. We are our own masters, which sometimes leads to a great deal of confusion and a lot of fun. We never quite know where we're going next. We are totally unscripted. There are no scripts at all written in this station. Perhaps that's a weakness, but nonetheless, as John Henty says, he sits down and he has no idea what he's going to talk about next or what we're going to talk about. And indeed, we rely a great deal upon our experience, background, long life. So even youngsters may find it, if they can concentrate for 5 minutes, find it a bit of fun and interesting information which you wouldn't get anywhere else. Okie dokie. Well, I think perhaps what we'll do is first. I know what we do first. What we always do first, because everybody wants to know about the weather. Well, today it's going to be 19. There will be a scattered cloud during the morning, solid cloud during the afternoon, 19 degrees, and no rain. No rain in sight at all. I don't think so. I take it back. We might get some rain in the late afternoon, but not a great deal. Not a great deal. Right. Oh, there's a lady taking the address. No, she's going to put a leaflet through the door. I thought it might be a government agent sent to shut us down. Oh, ways to deal with that. Right, okay. Now, it's sad in some ways that politics has to take such a front stage, and particularly the dramatic politics that we're undergoing at the moment. But it does have to, I'm afraid, and it creates the headlines. And those are the headlines, the front pages, is what we're going to look at. And we start off with the Times this morning. Starmer: a big majority will be the best for Britain. Well, now, of course it will be if you're a Labour supporter. But the experts say a government that is held to account by a strong majority, a big majority, or to offset the dangers of a big majority, don't agree with him. But it's a great political slogan to have, isn't it? A big majority will be the best for Britain. So he's hoping that with all the hoo-ha and the good campaign that they've run, and they have really run a good campaign. I personally don't like this slagging off of everybody in sight without actually laying out quite carefully what it is that you would do, and laying out quite carefully how much you will do, no matter what the temper is of the country, and whether in fact we want to stick democracy on its head for a while. The build-up to the election leads on many of Tuesday's front pages. This interview with Sir Keir Starmer says a large majority for his party would be better for the country, because it would mean we can roll up our sleeves and get on with the change we need. See what I mean? When I said we'd have some alternative stuff. Okay, The Guardian. Labour would take global lead on climate. That comes from Ed Miliband, a name that was at the forefront of British politics for a while, and then got back in the change of government, and very little has been heard from him since. But apparently he's an eminence gris in the Labour Party. And so we have to watch him and follow him. The paper also on the front page has a winning Wimbledon return for Raducanu, the young tennis player, to her match yesterday. The Eye. Labour faces up to prospect of a far right. Labour faces up to prospect of a far right neighbour in France, asking for early talks. Two unknown quantities, though. That'll be very interesting. The Eye says Labour is facing up to the prospect of a far-right neighbour in France. There we go again with this night parliamentary activity. But it says it is standing up to the possibility it will govern with Marine Le Pen's national rally expected to make a significant gain when the country's parliamentary elections conclude on Sunday. So that is the right wing that the paper is referring to. The Daily Mirror. Give our children hope. The ex-Prime Minister, this comes from Gordon Brown, urges voters to back Labour and end a scandal of kids growing up in poverty. Wow. The Daily Express. The Express. Which tends to be a pro-government paper most of the time. Voting reform risks losing hundreds of Tory MPs for a generation. The Daily Express carries an article by Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch, in which she says former Conservative voters considering switching to reform could bring about the loss of hundreds of Tory MPs in return for just a few inexperienced reform candidates. She says that now is a time for serious politics and that all our lives depend on it. Well, it's all very well for him to say that, because he's the one that's facing it. But that is a very unpleasant scenario. The Daily Telegraph. Royal Mail blamed for postal vote chaos. Oh, apparently there's uproar in the postal voting system. On the same page, incidentally, Trump has some immunity over January the 6th. The Royal Mail has been criticised by the Post Office Minister, Kevin Hollinrake, for failing to deliver postal votes in time for the election of the day's Telegraph reports. I read that badly. The Royal Mail has been criticised by Post Office Minister Kevin Hollinrake for failing to deliver postal votes in time for the election. The paper says voters in more than 90 constituencies since the paper says voters in more than 90 constituencies have raised concerns about their ballots failing to arrive. Mr. Hollinrake says the delays have been caused by a recording scandal issue. But the Telegraph also reports that well, it's not really, if you read into it, it's just backing up well, let's take a look, let's see it. No, it doesn't alert us to anything unusual. Trump has some immunity over January the 6th. I may not work after 6 months, rules Supreme Court in a majority victory. Oh, I see. They've merged the headlines. Take that back. Trump has some immunity over 6 rules Supreme Court in a major victory. Oh, that's very badly written. Which paper is that? Oh, the Telegraph. Really, you need a training session or two. Let's see, the delay is picked up. Right. Trump has some immunity over this January the 6th. Rules of Supreme Court in a major victory for the president. Royal Mail has been criticised by Post Office Minister Kevin Hollerich for failing to deliver postal votes in time for the election. The paper says voters in more than 90 constituencies have raised concerns about their ballot failing to arrive. Mr. Hollerich says the delays have been caused by a resourcing issue and that time is completely of the essence now. The Metro. Brit hero made the ultimate sacrifice. The Metro leads with the death of Peter Fouché, a British combat medic and founder of the Project Constantin charity, which provides essential supplies to soldiers in the front line. The charity said Fouché died on Thursday while working as a medic in eastern Ukraine. In a statement, it was said he was actively involved in saving more than 200 Ukrainian soldiers, and that there were no words or phrases that could ever encapsulate how much he meant to all of us. Well, that's nice. The Daily Mail. Ooh. Britain's forces are not ready for conflict of any scale. An ex-MOD chief, MOD being Ministry of Defence, of course, for those who aren't familiar with acronyms, chilling conclusion amid warning on Labour spending shortfall. A senior official has warned that the UK's armed forces are not ready for conflict of any scale. The paper follows an interview given to the Financial Times by Rob Johnson, who recently stepped down as the head of an office in the Ministry of Defence. The paper says his comments are devastating and will push defence back into the political spotlight just days before the election. I mean, I think everybody must know, but just in case you don't, voting is on Thursday. Financial Times. The Supreme Court hands Trump a broad immunity over actions as president. Financial Times leads on a ruling from the United States Supreme Court that Donald Trump has broad immunity from criminal prosecution for his actions as president. It comes as Trump is facing Well, Trump is facing numerous trials, including one over his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. The paper says that the ruling will reduce the likelihood of a verdict in the case until about November's elections, and that, if elected, Trump could instruct the Department of Justice to drop the case altogether. He's got a lot at stake, hasn't he, in terms of whether he becomes president or not, keeping him out of the court. The Star, with some glee, jumps up and down with the and has titled its headline "Oh Balls," because the footballer who scored the winning goal, Jude Bellingham. Apparently, I didn't see it, and I was watching, scratched between his legs, but he did it in a way that was meant to sort of say, stuff it up you. And the powers that be at Euros don't like that. They think it takes the game into disrespect. But most people have realised that it's only taking a joke. And don't we all, at some stage? What a world it would be if we were censured. If we were censured. Oh dear. Well, there you are. What's going on with the shouting and the screaming is pretty boring, really. It's what we anticipated. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, no, you don't, sort of approach. I'm going to make a speech about education. And before you can make it, there's somebody there trotting in some instance that will make you look not quite the idiot that you are. Pretty bad. So those are the news headlines, or at least the papers. All in all, what's the time? Oh gosh, it's only 25 past. We've got loads of time to do all sorts of things. Traditionally, Tuesday on Mirador is a quiet day, unless we have 10 murders and 15 earthquakes. But we do have coming up at somewhere around 10:30 is Kit Woods, who is our expert on education and who is taking us down an interesting path, in as much as he is. We all say, oh, the bloody government or this or whatever, about some of our candidates and guests and invitees. And we don't mean it one little bit. What they've done is just creating more confusion, I think. The time for jaw is rapidly coming to a close, and activity has got to reflect that particular viewpoint. And sorry if I keep pausing, but I do need sometimes, and I go down a path because my mind wanders around. I'm the anchor man. I'm the man that gets in first thing in the morning, and I'm beset by all sorts of interesting things and crises and so on and so forth, which I have to make sure that I'm on top of. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not. So I look around for anything that looks as if it might possibly create problems for us. But no, it doesn't. Now, it does occur to me that we what occurs to me. It occurs to me that some of you may not know entirely what we're talking about, but I bet an awful lot more people in our ranks haven't a clue what Mirador is about. Well, slightly tongue-in-cheek. Let's take a look. Hi, I'm Keith Hayes, and you're watching, or you're about to watch, or you're about to be exposed to Mirador Television. Mirador Television comes out of Lewes, on the south coast of England. It's a historic place. It's a historic town. It's a county town of East Sussex, where many, many historic occasions in the English history books took place. We are small. We bill ourselves as terrific TV for tiny towns, but we don't believe that we should be just local in the sense that we would be parochial. We are local, but we're not parochial. And we like to look at things around the world, situations, and relate them to our own town of Lewes, and give us a wider perspective of why things happen in the world, where they happen in the world, what happens in the world, and how it happens in the world. And that we hope that in converting that to our own thoughts of what happens here, we can give others a perspective around the world. So we're international, but we're local. And I hope that you'll enjoy what we have to offer, which is a little view of local politics, international politics, history, features on a good many variety of things along our coast, which is the most interesting coast, from highwaymen, smugglers, people burned at the stake, battles galore in medieval times, and lots more to boot. And we tried hard to bring those to you for entertainment while making a few points that we think are important around the world. So that's Mirador Television. Mirador, which means a little turret. We're a little turret. Mirador Television. I hope you'll stick with us. We're here to stay, we hope. Keith Hayes, Mirador Television in Lewes, East Sussex, and the coast of the United Kingdom. Toodle pip. Well, that's a bit of what we're all about. And explore more. Join us any weekday morning, Monday to Friday at 8 o'clock. And then we bring to you whatever happens to be in the news that day. There's little that's been talked about, except, as you can see, for the present time, except the election. One or two little other stories that impose themselves. If you're a sports addict, and the in-depth stories in other television stations, you'll find all sorts of tales about how England are faring in the Euros. I'm sure that so there you are. That's who we are. It is now 25 to 9. And oops, something went bing, bing, bing. It does things like that. Let's just relax for a minute or two, shall we? Much is spoken about the evil empire, Russia. I spent considerable time in Russia. In fact, I set up their major English language news operation. And it is an interesting country, to say the least. Why we are so deeply suspicious of the Russians, I have no idea, but undoubtedly it's to do with their leadership, and they must be equally as suspicious to us. What I found is working at a journalist level and meeting all sorts of people outside politics and outside journalism is that they are very nice people, very kind people, very family-oriented, very proud of their country. And that's as it should be. We're proud of our country. And look at the mess that it can get itself in from time to time. What sort of leadership it can have. Right. Now, one of the things that Mirador does is to look abroad, look overseas to see what's going on. And part of the style that we use to let you know is by using a combination of model railways, of properly shut trains, and all in all, a rail network for its size is not bad at all. Okay, let's see. Mom has gone to go behind the scenes. Right, so let's take a look at the evil empire. Let's take Russia, but through the eyes of people who are involved in trains. Ah, there we go. Well, just a little side trip to Russia. One of the interesting things about Russia is they don't totally understand what we talk about as being impartial. They argue that the way that you see the news and events and life, as they say, is depends on where you stand. And there's a lot of merit in that. They actually are people who have family units, they love, they cry, they hate, they smile. In fact, they put their trousers on much the same as we do. So there are lots of similarities. The political philosophy is different. Broadly, I suppose that Russia is great is the same sort of emotion that we think that Britain is great, that the Americans think that the greatest country in the world is the United States. And so all sorts of other people think that their countries are the most important and that they are misunderstood, or that they've got characteristics which, to hell with the rest of you, we don't care if you find them strange, offensive, or whatever. But they're very enterprising people, and they certainly have manufactured a good many different forms of weapon, transport, education, and much of it second to none. We, on the other hand, think that we've done the same, and where there's a clash, we become patriotic and support us and not them. But I had no problem at all. It is the only thing about the Russians is they are much more bureaucratic than we are. I'm not sure whether this still is in place. I'm sure it is, actually, because the wheels churn slowly in Moscow, as well as everything else churning slowly. But for instance, when you go into the country, you're given a coupon and you're warned not to let it go. This is almost your ID from overseas. And if you come into contact with their way of life and so on and so forth, then you need to waive this little ticket to show that you're a foreigner, and you must be treated perhaps a little bit differently and perhaps with a bit more respect than if you were a local. But you must show these things wherever you go. I was in a hotel. It was an okay hotel, nothing special. comfortable enough. And some friends had a dasher or a country house on the Moscow River. And they said, Keith, we're having people over to the dasher this weekend with a barbecue and so on and so forth. We'd like you to come. And will you stay the weekend? In very attractive invitation. So sure enough, I did. Had a terrific weekend. Got back, and the hotel would not let me into my room because, according to the rules and this little ticket, I should have told them that I would not be in situ that weekend and that I was going elsewhere. Them's the rules. Well, I looked pretty and said, sorry. Tut, tut, tut. I didn't mean to do it. But that cut no ice at all. You were supposed to be here and you weren't. And you didn't let us know. Eventually, I had to get the people that I was working for to come out to the hotel, talk to them, negotiate with them, and so on. And I was eventually let back into my room on the basis that the next day I would go with one of the representatives to an office which is halfway across the other side of Moscow, which is a big, big city, and sign a declaration and pay the fine and so on and so forth. So the day wore on, and I eventually was taken by the same people that looked after me the night before to some bureaucratic office where the charges were read out to me, and of course I had no idea. They had to be translated, and those charges more or less said I'd been a very naughty boy. I was fined. It's a very healthy fine too. I was fined and then driven back into the heart of Moscow and to go back to work. But that the charge was a criminal charge. And I said, well, was I guilty or not? Yes, you were guilty. We pleaded guilty and just paid the fine. So I now, to this day, have somewhere a file in the bowels of the Kremlin. It's not as if it's a document that you hand to them. They actually have a document which they've got cracking themselves and which they present you with on the basis that you will agree or else. So we were criminalized because I hadn't told them that I would not be in the hotel. The weekend was well worth it. In fact, I now have some very solid Russian friends. The family concerned, who have, well, some of them have visited Lewis in return for my stay with them. And the dasher they had, or the country house, was a lovely place. Their little garden was terrific. and they had a greenhouse in which I still have a proprietary interest in half of it. And Yuri, the man of the house, actually tends these tomatoes for me while I'm away, which is quite a long route of years, I'm afraid. But they insist that they are my tomatoes, half of the greenhouse, Keith's tomatoes. And the food and the way of life was just excellent. It was just excellent, and they're a lovely family. Interesting insight into their minds again, though, is, as I said, the family came to Lewis. We had a wonderful time. The um, the wife of the host, the daughter, her husband, so there were three of them, all had a terrific time. But the host could not come because he was a retired nuclear submarine commander. And the fear is that in leaving Russia or the Federation, that he would be picked up by an overseas spy, tabbed by an overseas spy, and the secrets which he would have on the various weaponry and technical stuff on Russian nuclear submarines, which could be useful to the West, they would try to get out of him. And so he was denied exit. It was only his family could come, not he. So I had a wonderful time in Russia. I was there in total, I suppose, for about 5 or 6 months. And very well looked after. Very well looked after. Right, it's just coming up to yes, it's 8:57. It's 3 minutes this side of 9 o'clock. Let me very quickly give you the front pages again, just the headlines, so you know what's going on this rather lovely morning, actually, so far. There's a postal vote chaos and Trump has broad immunity. The Times, Starmer, a big majority will be best for Britain. The Guardian, Labour would take a global lead on climate. Labour faces up to prospect of the far right neighbour in France. That is in reference, of course, to the fact that Marine Le Pen did extremely well. I wish they'd stop saying the far right. I talked to Harry Atherton again yesterday, and he said, "Oh, no, of course they're not far right. They have worked sort of being a centrist right." But anyway, our view, which we refuse to face the facts, is that they're far right. So Labour faces up to the prospect of far right neighbour in France with early talks. The Mirror. Give our children hope. Gordon Brown is quoted on the front page in the headline. The ex-Prime Minister urges voters to back Labour and end the scandal of kids growing up in poverty. Well, I have my own views on that, but I'm not going to express them this morning. Daily Express. Voting reform risks losing hundreds of Tory MPs for a generation. The reference to voting reform is the proposals by Labour to lower the voting age and to make other minor changes to the situation as it is at the moment. The Daily Telegraph. Royal Mail blames for postal vote chaos. Yes, we asked. Sorry. The postal vote chaos is lowering the age of voting to 16, which would put a whole bunch of, and traditionally students and youngsters left wing into the voting mix. And the Telegraph isn't very happy with that. It says it'll stuff the ballot box. A Brit hero made the ultimate sacrifice is about a British combat medical man who was one of the people who founded Murder of the Constantine charity. I think it's just independent. Sorry if I'm muttering a little bit, which provides essential supplies to soldiers on the front in Ukraine. The charity said Fouché died on Thursday while working as a medic in reaction to in Ukraine. They said that he was acting positively and saved more than 200 Ukrainian soldiers' lives. It doesn't say exactly how he did it, but apparently he was very brave. But now he'll have to be brave in that big television station in the sky. The Daily Mail. Britain's forces not ready for conflict of any scale. The Mail calls that interfering. And so it is. But what it's saying is we just, with various budget cuts and so on and so forth, armed forces are not up to snuff. With turbulence going on in the world, as the paper suggests, a bit of an uneasy situation. Financial Times. Well, I think we'll take a break. My eyes have started to get heavy, as they do. When you get up at 5 o'clock, is by the time just about now rolls around, is you've done a good half day's work. And staring at the screen can be hypnotic. So, forgive me if I stutter a little. The Daily Star is the funny one, as usual. Oh, balls, it says, and it shows Jude Bellingham clutching his crotch after scoring the goal. And he did it as an amusing gesture. The people in the people in power in the Euros didn't find it and are talking about banning him from the next match, which would be that'd be a bit difficult. That would most certainly be most unjust. Okay, time I think for us to take a bit of a break. We'll be back with a bit more fun and games before Kit Wood gets here and carries on with his fascinating series about drink. And why not? Why not? All right, here we go. Temporarily a toodle pip time. Never fear, I will return.